Alright, hail and welcome everybody to this week's episode of Midgard Musings, and today is episode 2 of the Deity discussion series here on Midgard Musings. If you're a first-time viewer, welcome. My name is Jesse, and I'm the host here weekly on this channel. If you haven't already become a subscriber to the channel, make sure you have bell notifications turned on so that way you're notified every time I upload a video on this channel, which is regularly every Sunday. Also go live. I got live Facebook friends down here watching. So if you do want to become a part of that live feed, joining the live discussions every Sunday night, I usually go live at 7 o'clock Central Standard Time. Follow the links in the description of this video for the Facebook page link. But as I said, episode 2 of the Deity discussion series. Episode 1, we covered Loki. He was the first figure that we covered in this series. You can check the annotated card that appears up in the video. If you're on a mobile device or you have ad blockers disabled, you're probably not going to see that. But I do have I'm going to create a playlist on this channel, so that way you can just go back and check out those videos. But check out that annotated card that appeared up in the corner if you're seeing it for the Loki discussion. But today, one of my personal favorites of the Norse pantheon, we're going to be talking about Tyr. So before we get started, I'm actually going to do this in reverse. Usually I light the candle and then light the incense. When you got all this going on and you're reaching for things, that's not a very good idea, come to find out. So we're going to light the incense first and then the candle, so as to avoid any sort of mishaps or accidents. So, I want to thank you all for joining me today and supporting Midgard Musings. You're going to see down in the description of this video, you're going to see links for a Teespring store wherein I have some merchandise, some t-shirts, coffee mugs, phone cases, things like that. See anything in there that you like, feel free to purchase something for you or a loved one. Yule is coming up. Some great gift items in there, so check all that out. Alright, so Tyr, or Tew, or Tyr, different pronunciations for the same figure. One of the chief gods of the Aesir, historically speaking, at one point in time was probably the chief or leader of the Aesir tribe. Had a lot of high rank sort of position in there. He's connected with war, law, more recently, more things of like law, justice, self-sacrifice, things of that nature. But we're not going to be talking about a whole lot when it comes to the etymology of Tyr's name or his role in some of the... Well, we're going to talk a little bit about historical texts and what we do know about Tyr, because unfortunately we don't have a whole lot to go off of from historical texts to understand who Tyr is. Okay, what we do know is, like I said, he's associated with war. He is invoked. We have some texts that say he is invoked in battle for victory, because the Tiwaz rune, which essentially looks like a line with two, it looks like an arrow, an up-facing arrow. That rune was oftentimes carved or burned or etched into weapons to bring victory in battle. It's the rune of justice, like I said, self-sacrifice, and brings victory. And those sources that we have for Tyr being invoked in battle is a poem called Sigurðarfumal. I probably butchered that pronunciation because I'm still learning the pronunciation of Old Norse. We also hear about him talked about in Lokasana, the fleeting Loki, the insults that Loki gives to the gods in Aegir's Hall. And Loki insults him because he got his hand bitten off by the wolf Fenrir. Now, a little bit of backstory with that. The reason why Tyr is one-handed, again, is during the binding of Fenrir, which you can read about in the Prose Edda, more in detail by Snorri Sturluson. He is the one who stuck his hand in Fenrir's mouth, because during Fenrir's binding, that was sort of a gesture of goodwill that Fenrir demanded that one of the gods stick their hand in his mouth, because he was a bit suspicious. Fenrir was a bit suspicious about the things that were being used to bind him, and as a token of good faith or whatever, he wants to have the hand of one of the gods in his mouth. And of course, and then when the bounds were placed on Fenrir and he couldn't break free, at that point was when Fenrir, snapped down and bit off Tyr's hand. But anyway, the reason that I'm bringing up the Lokasenna thing is because we hear about that during the exchange between Loki and Tyr. We hear that Loki says that he is one to stir up strife between people and never reconcile differences between people. So we look at Tyr as a figure of justice and victory and doing that which is right for the betterment of the whole. Doing individual right to benefit or better the tribe, the masses, so to speak. But we can kind of look at the reason why he's maybe stirring strife between people is because he's just too honest. That, or he's maybe just a bit bitter about the whole fact that he's, got a stump on his war hand, so to speak. So one of the interesting things to kind of keep in mind when it comes to Tyr and this whole relation between war and law, one may look at that and say, well, isn't there a conflict there with those two things? How can you have law and order when there's war and things like that? That is sort of due to the fact that in, the old Germanic people who revered Tyr as a god didn't really look at war and law as being two entirely different things. They were profoundly related in this culture, because things that were done in war was to bring about order and was to bring about some sort of, meeting of law. And if you think about it, things that happen in courts of law and things that happen when it comes to, lawful deeds is a legal battle. Okay, you're looking at a battle of sorts in the legal aspect. So the two are very related in that culture. But again, when it comes to like etymology and his name and what it means and the connection of all that, there's very limited resources. If you check the description of the video, I'm going to leave a few links of things that you can check out at your convenience of all that stuff if you're so interested. All right. What I really wanted to focus on with this video is talking about Tyr and how he plays a role in our lives as heathens today. Okay. For a lot of us, Tyr is considered what you would call a patron deity or a patron god. He's one who a lot of us, I think, like to honor in our altar pieces or in our daily rituals or in our lives in general. I personally look to Tyr for a lot of things in a lot of ways. I have a Tiwaz rune around my neck all the time. So for me, you could consider him as being a very prominent figure or very prominent deity in my practices, and he is, I know, for a lot of us that are watching. Okay, what I get from Tyr and what I've gotten from working with Tyr is the things that need to be done that are the right thing. Things that maybe we don't necessarily want to do, but that need to be done. Tyr gives us that strength. Tyr gives us that ability. Not the ability, but yeah, the strength. We have the ability, but he gives us that sort of feeling of empowerment, if you will, to carry out the actions, the needful actions, even when it hurts. Even when it's hard for us to do, even when it goes against our grain, so to speak. All right? The act that is for the overall good of the tribe, or for the good of the community, or for the good of those around you that you're close to, is, what right action is required isn't always the easiest. Again, Tyr placing his hand in Fenrir's mouth and then subsequently having it bitten off, that's the embodiment of self-sacrifice, because he knew that the binding of Fenrir was to protect and to be for the benefit of his tribe. It's not always the easy thing. It's not always the pleasant thing, but it's the right thing. I look to Tyr when I encounter times of trouble that I want to know what the answer is that I need. Okay, whether it is what I want or not. I kind of look at Tyr as sort of a fatherly figure, but a harsh one. A loving, harsh sort of father. And again, I'm not saying that he's like my father or anything like that in that aspect, not in the spiritual sense. But I look at his energy has a sort of a vibe to me, and in my dealings with him. Now, this may be different with you, which, again, that's to each their own. But how you deal with Tyr and how you've come to connect with him in your practices could be different than mine. I'm just saying, for me, this is something that he has that feeling of, I'm right there with you, and I'm going to push you, and I'm going to give you the things that you need, whether you want it or not. If you work with him and you work with him closely. So again, there isn't a whole lot of other texts that we can go by in terms of poems or stories. He's not very thoroughly covered in the lore, like for instance, say like Thor is, or Odin. Some of these other higher, I guess, revered or some of the gods that our ancestors look to. Tyr doesn't have a whole lot of stuff written about him and that we can look to. So what I go by is what I feel from him in my own dealings, my own personal dealings. All right. So again, this is something that is totally open for discussion. I'm anxious to hear what all of you have to say and how you've actually had experiences with Tyr yourself. Have you worked with him in ritual? Have you had him come to you in your times of need? Have you called on him or invoked him in some of your practices? And if so, if you would be willing, go ahead and share that down in the comment section, because I'm definitely anxious to hear. I hear different things from different people, and I love to see and hear how the gods work with each and every one of us. Before I end this video, I do want to give a shout out to another channel here on YouTube that I definitely encourage everyone to check out. The link for his channel is going to be down in the description, and you should see an annotated card somewhere along the video for Eric Wordweaver Shervin. Okay, he's a very knowledgeable heathen based out in East Texas, and he is the Godi for a kindred or tribe out there called the Midgard folk. He has a wonderful channel of just a wealth of knowledge. I encourage anybody that watches my content and supports me in any way to please check out Eric's channel. Become a subscriber on his channel. Let him know that I sent you over there if you so choose. It's not a big deal if you don't. And then check out his subsequent Facebook group, which is Wordweaver Productions. I'll leave all that down in the video description. All right. So this pretty much concludes my take on Tyr. Again, check the description for all the links that you can follow for more information about him that I've been able to find. And let me know what you've been able to find as well. Let me know what your feelings are with Tyr and how you've come to work with him in your own practices. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Please share it around. Right up here, you're going to see that Midgard Musings floating emblem. Click on it, become a subscriber. Once you do, click the bell notification. You'll be notified every time I upload videos here on this channel. So you guys here on Facebook, don't go anywhere, because I'm going to check the comments and see what everyone is saying. And I'll see you guys next week on this channel. Hail and thank you.